I want to talk about the week's most important economic story.
As president, I'm committed to making Washington work better.
No, it's not Obama's State of the Union speech, it's not the stock markets, and has nothing to do with the Federal Reserve. I'm talking about a decision made in Beijing this week to ban smoking in schools across China. Why is this economic news? Well, consider these numbers. China is said to have 350 million smokers, more than the entire population of the United States. I bring up the American comparison because the Surgeon General, coincidentally, released a report last month that caught my eye. The fallouts of tobacco use, the report said, cost Americans $289 billion a year, about 4 times as much as our federal budget for education. 20 million Americans have died in the last 50 years as a result of smoking, more than the tally from all of our wars put together. This year, nearly 500,000 Americans will die prematurely because of smoking. The numbers are just staggering, and I imagine that in China, the numbers are much, much worse. Well, the good news is things are actually getting better, and the ban in China is another big stride forward. According to the World Health Organization's most recent data from 2010, 109 countries had national bans on smoking in hospitals, 42 on smoking in restaurants, and 35 on smoking in bars. Every year, new countries join this list. India banned smoking in public places in 2008. So did France. Meanwhile, there's been a substantial decline in global smoking rates. In 1980, 41% of the men around the world were smokers. By 2012, the number dropped to 31%. At least some of the credit has to go to Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York. Remember when he first proposed a smoking ban in New York back in 2002?
Freedom of choice! Freedom of choice!
Critics derided the plan as heresy. Europeans thought it was American Puritanism at work. No one had ever pushed through a ban of that magnitude in a major metropolis. But within a few years, dozens of major cities followed suit, including ones in Europe where smoking seemed part of the scenery. Paris, Rome, London. Places where it would have been unimaginable to limit smoking, like Jordan and of course now China, are moving in this direction. The benefits in New York were seen immediately. According to the American Journal of Public Health in 2004, just 1 year after New York's smoking ban, there were 3,800 fewer hospital admissions for heart attacks. New Yorkers saved $56 million on healthcare costs that year. Critics have called Bloomberg a nanny, someone who wants to take away free choice from people. But when you consider the healthcare costs involved, costs borne by all of us who don't smoke, to me it seems like common sense. The irony is that over time, most people seem to agree, even smokers. In 1965, 42% of American adults were tobacco users. Today, that number has dropped to just 18%. The lesson here is not just about helping people make choices, but giving them the right information and options. The next frontier is obesity, another preventable scourge. More than a third of all Americans are obese. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the annual medical cost of obesity in the United States amounts to $147 billion. How many lives lost and how many dollars spent before we do something to reverse this trend? What are the smartest ways to help people make informed choices about the thousands of empty calories that they often unknowingly consume? That's not a nanny state, but rather one that's trying to help you stay alive and healthy. And just as happened with smoking, if someone in the United States is bold enough to start something, people might at first say it's weird and cranky and crazy, but who knows, a few years later, they'll be doing the same thing in Paris and even Beijing. Up next,